How's everybody doing? All right. My name is Eric Bishard. I'm the MetaMask DevRel manager. And today we're going to be doing a workshop for the next about hour and a half. It's 2 hours. And we're going to be building a full stack React truffle monorepo kind of starter application that you can take home with you and would be a good starter for any Web3 DAPP that you're building. Again, my name is Eric Bishard. Some of you guys might know me. I've done the ETH Dubai conference hosting track 1 last year, Web3 Dubai. And yeah, so I'm very glad to be back here. 3rd time in Dubai this year, which is great. Love Dubai. So agenda is very simple. Who am I? Who are you? And let's build a DAPP. So you guys already know who I am. One thing I wanted to do real quick was ask you guys a few questions. While I'm asking these questions, you can use this tiny URL right here, and this will take you to the GitHub repo that has all the code. The way that we're going to do this is I'm going to work through building this DAPP from start to finish. Well, not really start. We start you at a point where all of the NPM dependencies and everything are already downloaded. We're going to walk through building the whole thing. The cool thing about this workshop is if you go to this URL, there's a README there that has all the explanation, all the code that you need to walk through the workshop yourself. There's also a start and a final branch. So there's 2 ways you can do this workshop today. One, you can code alongside us, like I'm going to be doing. 2 is you can passively watch. There's really 3 options. 2 is to passively watch, and 3 is to passively watch while maybe pulling down the repo, switching over to the final branch on it, and just kind of going over the code as we go over it. But first off, I wanted to ask a few questions. So of everyone here right now, who is a React developer? Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3. All right. And who here doesn't do development at all? All right, great. So those passively watch. You'll still learn some stuff. Maybe you have people that you work with that work with MetaMask. We're going to be going over MetaMask SDK, which is a pretty nice little project, which allows any DAPP, Unity project, Node.js application, React Native application, whatever, to be able to connect to MetaMask extension or mobile, depending on kind of what platform you're on. If you're on web, well, you can have them connect to MetaMask extension or mobile. If you're on Unity or if you're on iOS, you've built a React Native application, then you're just going to be connecting to the MetaMask mobile. So if you guys have had time to go to this tiny URL, I'll leave it up for 1 more second, and I'll just mention that if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's http://junkie, and that's the same on GitHub, Telegram, Twitter, whatever. We have a few more people coming in, so I would just tell the people that are coming in that if you want to follow along, take a snapshot of this slide. I can always come back to it if needed, but if everyone else has got it at this point, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, we're going to be building a full stack monorepo, which monorepo just means that you have the web and kind of the blockchain application both within the same GitHub repo. And the way that we're going to start it out is we've already got some smart contracts built. We'll go over those smart contracts, what they mean, why we're using them. And we're going to be building a on-chain SVG NFT ticketing system that just allows you to mint NFTs for us. It's a Unreal event, but let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my console. So there's going to be a lot of just coding in this, so you might want to be ready for that. So here you can see is where that URL would have taken you, and I'm going to be coming back to this as a reference. But as you're following along, you can be following the instructions in this README. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this code here that will pull down the repo, and it will switch us into that directory, check out the start, and then go ahead and install all of our npm dependencies. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. The first little bit's going to be slow until we get going. And then when I'm done with this, I'll go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, give you guys an environment that you're a little bit more used to seeing here. And this might take a minute, depending on how well the internet is here. If you are following along, there's some prerequisites here. If you want to get started, you're going to need to have Node.js 18, and that will come with npm 5. You'll need a code editor, a GitHub account, a MetaMask extension installed. Knowledge of JavaScript, TypeScript, and React is a plus. If you don't have that, you'll learn a little bit today, and also just an eagerness to learn. All right, so we've got that going here. Let's go ahead and open up our Visual Studio Code editor, and then we'll be able to ditch this terminal over here. And then, of course, once we're inside of this repo, you'll have the same README, and we'll just work off that README. It'll be easy to grab code off of. So let me blow this up a little bit here and probably increase the font size a little bit. Just move things around. All right. So as we said, this is a mono repo. Great to give this link to people if you know they're a developer and they're getting started with Web3. They want to do everything in one project. I've also made some other executive decisions here around how we're going to be running our local blockchain environment. So what we've decided to do is just to make it very simple for anyone pulling up this repo to start Truffle and Ganache kind of in the background and also run our web application. So we're using TurboPack, which is a great new project which kind of replaces Webpack, but it's super fast, and I can do all of the major terminal commands right here from the main console. And yeah, so we're using TurboPack, React, Next.js, Truffle, Ganache. And with those tools, we have a pretty good framework to start building an application. Really quickly, we're going to go ahead and change directories into our web application just to make sure everything kind of works. So let's go ahead and run that, and we should see the Next.js app go ahead and boot up here, and we'll open that in our local host. And we should see a very simple message, let's build in Web3. So good, we're good to go there. We'll come back to this web page as we start to build out our application. We're going to go ahead and kill that terminal and just back up a few directories because, like I said, we're working in TurboPack, which means we can execute all of our commands right here from the root of the project, which is pretty nice for developing. We'll go over a few things real quick, which is like, what's in this blockchain folder? So we have our smart contract, and we have a few libraries that it uses, like hex strings and base64. These are things that when I open up this contract, you'll see that we're using. Basically, hex strings just allows you to convert uint256 to ASCII strings, basically blockchain type data to regular string data. And base64 allows us to transform byte32 data into its base64 string representation for saving like JSON files. I know that's a lot of bullcrap, but those are really essential packages and libraries that help us out a big time in our Solidity contract. So as we go to our Solidity contract, we can already kind of see what this thing is doing here, right? Solidity's pretty easy to read. It's a pretty simple language so far. And as you can see here, we have a total supply of tickets. We're keeping track of who the owner is, what is the max supply of all the tickets that we want to create for our fictitious event. Our fictitious event is going to be called ETH Atlantis because I figured nobody would be starting an ETH Atlantis anytime soon. And then we're going to have a concept of VIP and general admission tickets, which for simplicity in my contract, the difference between a VIP ticket and a GA ticket is just the price. So if whoever's buying this ticket pays 0.1 ETH, they get a GA ticket. If they're paying 0.2 ETH, they get a VIP ticket. Now, of course, you could do that many different ways, but for a demo and just something to get started, this is a pretty cool way of doing it. We want to know who the wallet of owner is for each NFT, because in our front end, we want to be able to have a couple of minting functions for each ticket. So we've got a general admission and a VIP ticket. And when they mint those tickets, we want the application to actually display any NFTs that they've already purchased down there at the bottom of the application. And one of the ways that we do that is we have a function in here. So we've got our mint function, and then we have generate NFT SVG by token ID, which is a pretty long function name. But what this does is it takes the same SVG that we're saving on chain, and it allows us to call into this public function to basically pass in a wallet address, and we can get all the NFTs that that person owns back into an array and then display them on the front end exactly how they're saved on chain. The reason we've gone with an SVG on-chain ticket is because for a demo, for a workshop, it's much easier to get people building, especially if they're new to Web3, with something that doesn't include IPFS and all this other shit where they've got to keep track of images and upload them to IPFS and pin them and do all this extra stuff. So we're getting around that by just throwing that SVG on-chain. There's better ways to do it, but not for a demo. All right, so if we go back to our README here, we can see that kind of the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and build our project. So let's go ahead and get that done real quick. So this is just compiling all of the code that we need to be able to run our project. And then the next function that we're going to run will spin up our local version of Truffle and Ganache. So that way we have a way of kind of locally running and testing our code and our contracts and our DAPP while we're developing. So let's go ahead and run that next. So this will spin up that side of the application, kind of our back end, if you will. And you can see that whenever we have Ganache running, we have all of these private keys and accounts here. So these will allow us to import these accounts into our MetaMask wallet, and it'll give us 100 test ETH so that we can build locally and test out our application. So we've got that there. We're going to go and open up a new terminal, and that's where we'll run our dev. And we need to do a few other things really quickly in our MetaMask wallet to be able to get to a point where we can test this application. One is that we need to create a network, like a local network that we can hit with our MetaMask. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller and open up our MetaMask. Oops. Let's get that over here. And we're going to add our own RPC or our own network. So we're going to come down here at the bottom and hit add network manually. And you might have done this in the past before with like other chains, but we're going to do it for our local host, right? So we're going to call it localhost 9545. We're going to put in an RPC, which kind of matches that. This is actually the more important piece of information. Our chain ID will be 1337, leet, dope. And then we'll just put in ETH as the currency, save that, and now we have a local host that we can use to test. One thing we need to go do is we need to go grab one of these wallet IDs. So I'm going to go grab this last one here, and this will give us all of our kind of local test ETH that we can use. And then once we have that, we'll have all of our MetaMask stuff set up and ready to go. So we'll go to import account. Paste in that private key. Don't worry, it's nothing that you guys, even if I showed you that, it's nothing you can do anything with. It's all local. And cool. So now we have that kind of running in the background, and we're good to kind of move on with the rest of this. So let's move back over to our dev here, and we will also, so we've got our dev environment up and running. It looks like we've got our account address. So we'll copy this account address over into this web file here. We've got a lib folder with a config, and we just need to tell it what that address is. And once we paste that in there, we're not going to have to do that again. So we've got so now our application knows what contract that we're dealing with, and now we can open up localhost 3000, And of course, we have this Let's Build in Web 3. And let's make this a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. All right. And now we get to the fun part, which is we're going to start building this thing. And it's going to be kind of like a speed run here. I'm going to do it as quickly as possible because the idea, so sometimes people are like, oh, all we're doing is copying, pasting code and creating these files. But if you do this yourself, then you have a really good idea of where everything is and why you're creating these files and what they're used for. And then if you want to take this home and you want to do something with it, you can walk through this README. You have all the explanation that I'm going to be covering here, and you have every single step that'll get you from that starting point all the way to the finishing point. I see a few extra people have came in really quick here. I'll give you this URL one more time. So it's tinyurl.com/ETH Dubai 2023. tinyurl.com/ETH Dubai 2023. And if anyone needs that again, just raise your hand. All right. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to be able to connect to our MetaMask. It's pretty much the first thing that you're going to do in any DAPP, right? So the first thing we want to do is to create, and we're going to be doing a lot of this, creating new folders and files. So let's create a new folder called Styled Components. If you are a React developer, let's spell that right. You'll know quite a bit about styled components. Styled components are really cool. It's kind of like a way of taking the styling that you need for each function or each component in your React application and kind of creating a function out of it, which is pretty cool. So we're going to copy this over, and we're going to create a new file called navigation.js, and this will be all the styling for our navigation. Let's go ahead and do that. So this will be navigation.js. And again, if you're following along, the README goes right in order of everything that we need to be doing. And again, that's tinyurl.com/ETH Dubai 2023 for those that are continuing to walk in. Next, we need to create a general file in here. So the general file, as you can assume, that last styling was for the navigation component or React component. But we need some some styling specifically for anything else in the application that can be reused, right? So these styles here, like the flex container, flex item, these allow us to use Flexbox to create formatting or layout. As well, there's a button here that, we're definitely going to want to reuse the same button in different places. We don't want to create a button over and over and over in React. So also, we want the styling to all be in one place. Again, the cool thing about this styling is you create the styling and the name of the component that you're going to create with it here. You tell it whether it's a div, or you could put h1 or span or whatever you want there, and it will create a component with that HTML element as the wrapping component. The wrapping element on it. All right. Next, we need to go ahead and create our navigation file. So this is going to be basically the first React component that we're building here today. And this is going to have all of the stuff that we need in order to connect to our MetaMask. So let's create a navigation.tsx page here. Go ahead and paste that in and take a look at what we're doing here. So I'll also kind of be reviewing this code a little bit, right? So we're importing those styled components. As you remember, we had a flex container, button, flex item, and you can see all of those components here, right? So again, another reason why I love styled components. But all of this component really it's the full navigation view, and then you've got a flex container inside, which allows us to do basically like Flexbox styling layout. And then each side of the navigation, so we have a logo side, and then we have the side with the MetaMask button on it. So that's going to be our flex items. So as you can see, we have a logo on the left-hand side, which just says ETH Atlantis, again, our awesome event that we're going to be creating. And on the right-hand side, we have this MetaMask Connect button. And of course, this is going to get swapped out with something else, but let's go ahead and save that. So we have our navigation component created. Really nice. Next thing we need to do is we need to import that navigation item into our main index page, which is also going to be our minting page. It's kind of serving both purposes for this project. In a real project, you would probably have several different pages, but this is pure demo style here, so our index will also be our minting page, and you can see we've named that component mint. And then also there is that navigation component that we just created. So we have a reference to that. That'll be the top thing on our page, and yeah, move on, right? So let's go ahead and close these. Open up our README again. All right, so where are we at now? Yeah, so what we just did there was we inputted our navigation, and this adds the component to the area that we kind of had reserved for it. We should also see in the top right-hand corner that Connect button, but we need to actually put a button there. But first, we need to do a few other things, and I think this is one of the things that I like about this workshop, that I liked creating this for people that are new to Web3, is because when you start using React and MetaMask and these different tools to start building a Web3 DApp, great, you have the ability to connect to MetaMask. That's awesome, but what about keeping your application in sync with the state of that wallet, what the balances are, whether you're connected to that wallet, whether you've disconnected to that wallet? All of these things are things that we can achieve with React hooks. So if you're a React developer, you probably know a little bit about React hooks. We're going to go create 2 of them, and one's going to be called Use Listen. The other one's going to be called Use MetaMask. So we're going to create a new folder in here inside of web called hooks. And then inside there, we're going to have, let's do Use Listen first. And I'll show you guys what this does as we create it. Get the dot in there. All right, so that's not the right one. Let's try that again. All right, so this will be the Use Listen React hook. And what is this guy doing? We're going to come back to that in one moment. Let's go ahead and get the other one created too. So the other one is called Use MetaMask. And this one's a little bit more involved. And this is the file that if you're trying to track state inside of React, you're probably using React Context API. And this portion of code right here took me a while to develop and to kind of, I guess, use the best practices over time. So this potentially could save you quite a bit of time as you're developing your DApp. At least it gives you a nice starting point so that you can have a nice reducer in your application that handles connecting to MetaMask, disconnecting, whether or not the page has been loaded, whether or not you're in a loading state or an idle state, and also having a default state, right? So we have, usually in React context, we have some type of a reducer. We have some initial state that reducer uses to kind of be a starting point for all of our state in our React application. And then we also create this component down here, which is a provider. And then we're going to go wrap our entire application with that provider, so our application has access to all this data that is the state of our wallet in our application. So we've got those 2 files created, and then Use Listen is just keeping track of the balance and dispatching that connect and disconnect function whenever we need to. So these files respectively listen for changes in the user's connection to MetaMask, and they set up a context provider for sharing the wallet state to the components in our app. With those files in place, we'll wire up our connect and disconnect so that we can display the very basic balance information for the connected user. So we're going to go back to our navigation.tsx file that we just created, and we're going to paste in this code and kind of see what we've done differently here. And there's quite a bit, so there's a lot to go over here. Again, this is all of the information that you're going to need to know just to be able to connect to MetaMask with our SDK, which again lets you connect to either extension or mobile. And that's pretty easy to do. That's just a few lines of code to instantiate our SDK. But if you want to be able to keep that state in sync in your application, then you need to write a lot more code, and that's what this is. All right, so let's start at the top here. Again, we've pulled in some of that basic, those styled components. We have a dispatch to update our state once we've started using MetaMask. So we're using our use MetaMask and use listen functions here from our React hooks. And we're setting a few variables called show install MetaMask or show connect button. We want to determine if the user has MetaMask, has it installed, or if they're connected already. So we need to have a few variables to be able to track that information. And then we also have, like I said, an is connected. When we connect, we want to be able to dispatch, we want to be able to request from Ethereum using the RPC API into MetaMask. We want to be able to get the balance, we want to be able to request the accounts, and we want to be able to dispatch our connect and then listen from that point on to any changes that MetaMask wallet has so that we can continue to update the state in our application. And with React, that's super easy because with this provider that we have, any data that changes in the wallet that we're tracking, it's automatically going to get sent to our components, and our components are going to automatically update. That's the great thing about kind of having React. All of the rest of this is the same as we had before, except for in this right nav section where we had that little holder for the MetaMask button. So as you can see here, if we need to show the connect button, we're going to do that. If we need to show the install MetaMask button, we're going to do that versus, hey, we've got a wallet, we've got a balance, let's show that information because the user's already connected. So it's basically only one of these will ever get kind of rendered at one point in time based off of the logic that we created up here where we determine whether or not they have MetaMask installed, whether or not they're not connected or whether they've already connected. Cool. So we can move past that navigation and kind of move on to one of the next components that we're doing. So at this point, we would still get an error if we ran our front end because even though we've done all this cool stuff and we've created this cool context provider, we have not wrapped our entire application with that context provider. So we'll go do that really quick, and then we should be able to see some of this stuff working. So if we go over to our app.tsx, this is kind of where that wrapper is going to need to be placed. So as you can see, the only thing that we've done here is we've imported this MetaMask provider, and we've wrapped the rest of our application with it. So anything within this component here, any component that loads in our application has access to that state and will automatically get updated because React is fucking awesome, and it will re-render on the page without us having to do anything else. At that point, we can probably go back over to our app now, and we can see install MetaMask. I don't think we should be doing that yet. Let's see here. Well, we already have a problem. So I think it's telling us to install, but we've already got it installed. So let's try something real quick. It's the great thing about demos, live demos, is things always go wonderfully. So let's go ahead and kill that for a moment and then add it back. That shouldn't be the problem. Let's see if we've done anything wrong here. So we have our navigation, got our layout, navigation.js. We need to update our, we need to update our layout. Didn't finish here. I had one more thing to, two more things to do here. I was getting ahead of myself. So let's go over to the layout.tsx. The reason why this is needed is because in a React application, we need a kind of a central point to be able to kind of determine if MetaMask is already installed, find out if there's an Ethereum provider already injected, and then be able to call listen from another point in our application to kind of bootstrap those things that we just added. And then from there, we should have just one more thing to do before we can see our stuff working. Again, I got a little bit ahead of myself. So we need to add a MetaMask SDK.ts file, and that's going to be in our library directory here. And we need to add this code. So this is what actually instantiates that MetaMask SDK. So again, you could have done this just by itself in your React application, and you would have been able to connect to MetaMask, either the extension or the mobile. But again, you're not going to be able to track all the state. And we have some packages and some features coming out in MetaMask SDK where you may not have to write some of this, or you might be able to have a component that does some of that stuff for you. But it's a very new library, and so typically I would want to do a lot of that stuff myself anyways, because I may not want to be tracking all of the state of that wallet. So at that point, we should have everything working now. Great, there's our Connect MetaMask button. Yippee. So if we go there, we should be able to connect after I put in my password here. What is it, test 1, 2, 3, 4? No? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, test 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you guys can, if you can get my machine, you can break into my wallet that has nothing in it. Great, so now that we've connected, we can see what our MetaMask address is. We can see how much ETH we have. I'm super flush with ETH right now with 100. Of course, that is only local test ETH, so I can't really do anything with it other than buy tickets to my own event. That's a fictitious event anyways. But great. So what we've done so far is we've created this navigation at the top. We've got a cool little fucking logo here, and we've got buttons that connect to MetaMask. And even behind the scene, you can't really tell yet, but if we were to start spending ETH, it gets rounded up, but if we were to start spending ETH, or if we were to connect to another wallet or disconnect or any of that stuff, our application would know about it, and it would re-render these components automatically. And that's a really cool place to be in. And now we can actually start to build the meat of the rest of our app. We can build our minting page. We can build the display for our tickets. So let's get started with that. So since our app is based on showing the type of tickets available and allowing for the user to mint those tickets, we need to add a few components directly to the index.tx page. First thing we need to do is we need to add a few imports here. So on the index.tx page, we need to import Ether's library for interacting with Ethereum and the tickets component that we'll be creating in just a moment. So let's go do that. We're just going to paste these right here. So now we have those. And of course, this one's not showing up yet because we haven't created it. So we'll go ahead and create that one next. We've also got to add this code here. So this is what keeps track of our different tickets. Again, we have GA and VIP, so that we have two different types of tickets on our page. And we're going to be posting this just below where we instantiate that mint component. All right. And then, of course, we need to add this tickets right below the navigation. So that'll go right here. And so this will show up right underneath our navigation. And the way that I've styled everything, they'll be completely separated. And now we've got it added to this page. And I usually do that as I'm developing. I'll kind of like create where a component's going to go, and then I'll go create that component next. So that's exactly what I'm going to go ahead and do. So I need to create a tickets.tsx. Again, this is TypeScript. Another thing I would mention is that not only are we doing some pretty cool stuff with React state in this application, but we're also using all TypeScript, and the TypeScript is pretty solid. I'm sure that if someone was like a really hardcore TypeScript developer, they might be able to find some issues with it, but it's pretty good. So we'll go ahead and create a file here called tickets.tsx. And so not only are we using TypeScript everywhere, but we're also using something called type chain, which is a really cool NPM package that knows about my contract. it knows about my Solidity contract, and I get typing for all of the functions that I might want to call from my front end with, inside of my React application into that contract. So my mint function, or my generate SVGs by token or by address, I get full typing for all that stuff. So again, this is a great place to start your project because it has all those things built in, all those developer productivity things in place. Now we also need to create a a styled component, right? Because we can't just have a tickets component without some awesome tickets styling. So let's go ahead and get that in place here. And this is just very basic, like background color, font color, background padding size, height, that kind of stuff. So it's mostly just formatting. And with all this in place, we should be able to run our DAPP, and we should see those tickets showing up, right? So boom, now we've got this application. It's got ETH Atlantis, almost a better website than ETH Dubai already. So we've got ticket types, we've got general admission, VIP, and then we have these mint ticket buttons, which aren't going to do anything right now because, again, in web development and software, we've got to build everything before it works. We've got the things in place. We know what we want it to look like, but those things don't work yet. Great, so we need to add some additional code to our tickets.tsx page, allowing us to interact with our smart contract. This is some of the most important code right here, because if we can't call into that smart contract, which, by the way, I have all that shit wired up already for you guys, in the tickets page, we need to add a few imports to the top, actually quite a few of them. So let's go ahead and do that first. Here we go. So probably just replace all of this with that. And why is this one still not showing up? Let's just do / tickets. Oh, now it says it's there. Okay, whatever. Visual Studio Code's weird sometimes. All right, so we've got that. So these imports will give us access to our connected wallet state. The Next.js router is also something that we have imported there. We've imported our ETH tickets factory created by our build, which utilizes type chain. We just talked about that. We've also got ethers, and that allows us to interact with the blockchain. So next, we need to add a few more things here. We want to be able to deconstruct our wallet state from the use MetaMask function, and then we want to pull in that router so that we can refresh the page. We can force a refresh on the page whenever we want to. And with that in place, we've got most of what we need for the update of this file. All right. We need to add the mint ticket, right? So we'll add this in, and I'll kind of show you what this is doing. So we're going to add that right above what our return statement. Yeah. So right above the return statement, we're going to add this function. And this is what calls out to our smart contract. Remember, we have a mint NFT function, public function, inside of our smart contract. So one thing that we could be doing already as developers, rather than putting this function here and hitting it from our front end, is we could be using like one-click DAPP or one of these other tools that allows us to put in our, whether it's a test chain address or whether it's a local address. You could even use the Solidity IDE online to do this stuff, where you have a contract, and then you've got all these cool little buttons to help interact with that. But we're going to skip right over that because, again, this is a demo, and we're just going to assume that I wrote all this code correctly and that it's just going to work. So we call mint NFT, and what does it need? It needs, the wallet and the price, because that's all it needs to do to mint NFT. It needs to know who you are based on your wallet, and it also needs to know what price you're paying for your ticket. Remember, point 1 is a GA ticket, point 2 is a VIP ticket. If all goes well, we should hit this then function. And in fact, we should never hit this catch unless something goes wrong with the transaction. One way we could trigger that catch is to reject the transaction in MetaMask, but we're not going to do that. We want it to hit this then. So once the transaction starts happening, we want to wait for it, because we want to disable any buttons that are on the page, right? Web3 is full of bad UX. One thing that you can do to kind of make that better is wait on transactions, wait till they're done, gray things out on the application, make it to where the users can't use them until your transaction is finished, until you've minted those NFTs. Once it's done, we'll set is minting to false so that we're not in that state anymore, and we'll force a reload on the page. All right, we're really speed running this. We're making great time here. So we talked about the async call. Finally, we just need to be able to add a button that will trigger that call. So there should be a button down here, and it's disabled kind of by default. And we're going to add this little on-click function that knows about that, knows how to call that mint ticket. And we've also added this guy right here, which is can't mint. So this is just a variable that keeps track of, do I not have a wallet available yet, or am I not is minting, which basically just means I can't mint right now. So if I'm in a state where my application, I can't mint, it's good UX to go ahead and disable that button so someone can't keep clicking on it, and it's doing, basically popping up more MetaMask dialogues, right? So at this point, if we are connected to the DAPP with MetaMask wallet that has some ETH in it, we can test those buttons out. So ensure that you have your developer tools in your browser is open, and we could see like the console log there. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go and try and mint one of those NFTs. So let's refresh here, and we should get that little hand. Great, that means that it's not disabled. We'll go ahead and mint. Yeah, we'll wait for a good price here. That looks good. All right, so we've minted an NFT. Now, again, UX. We've got some really bad UX here. We've minted an NFT, but there is nothing to kind of let the user know that they've minted that NFT. I could create another. I could do another one right now. I could do the general admission. I could confirm this one. So now I've minted 2 NFTs. Again, I have no way of really knowing that as a user. So I think what we want to do is we want to create a component below that that's called tickets owned. And with that component, we can render out those tickets, those SVG tickets that we have literally as they exist on the blockchain. So let's go ahead and add a new styled component here. It's going to be called ticketsowned.js. And we will add the styled components for that. Again, this is just the styling for that component. We got to do this for every component that we create. It's fun. And then in the index.tsx, we need to go add that final component, tickets owned. So let's go do that. And we're reaching the home stretch here. I know that you guys are, let's see, do we already have that one here? Oh no, we have to add that one underneath it. I'm silly. All right, so now we've got tickets owned there, and it's not imported yet, but I can fix that really quickly. What do you mean no? Why can't it import it? Anyways, we'll just do tickets owned. Do we do tickets owned? Oh, we haven't created the file yet, that's why. Getting ahead of myself. Tickets owned. Let's go create that tickets owned, and we'll put it inside of that tickets folder because everything tickets. Yeah, we still have some stuff to go over here. This is a long file, but I think you'll like this one. So again, we want to be able to tickets owned. We want to be able to give them a little bit better UX, let them know what they've already purchased before. Go ahead and paste that in there. So let's really quickly just run over this, what this is, right? So we have NFT data and tickets formatted. These are just some types that we've created so that, again, as we're kind of working in our application, always creating these types to make sure that we get, all of the, all the cool stuff like this where I can see exactly what this object is. Tickets owned, right? We need to have a ticket collection, which is a piece of state that represents all of the tickets that I own as a wallet owner. We also need to be able to get the wallet address from our use MetaMask, right? Remember, we created that use MetaMask hook, and now we're seeing a component that we've added another component that we've added where we can just tap into that thing and we can tap into the state of that MetaMask wallet. We have a use effect here. Basically, this just means we're doing something kind of from outside of the application, and we want to update our application. So we are we're getting a provider, a signer, a link to that factory, and then NFT tickets is kind of that is an object that represents our smart contract, and we're going to tell it what contract address it's associated with, and then finally tickets retrieved. This is where all of those tickets are going to be held. It's a variable that's going to hold all of those tickets that we've already received, and we're going to populate that based on calling nfttickets.walletofowner, right? So if we double click on this guy, we can see where it's being added down here, where it's being populated, and basically every time that we have this map function here, so every time that we get a ticket that this person owns, we're pushing that into this tickets retrieved array, and then you know, when all of this is done, and you can go and take a closer look at this yourself if you want to, we now have this array full of all of these tickets. Finally, we want to have a list of those tickets, and then we want to kind of populate them in a grid. So we've got a grid container and a grid with some nice little formatting here. And with that, we should be at a point where we're pretty much done. Let's go just kind of make sure that we've got everything. We've got tickets owned, tickets. Oh, we can go back to our index and actually update this guy now. Now it knows what to do with it. Quick fix. Yeah, let's import that, save it, go back to our application, and look, now we've got our tickets down there. They're a little bit big. We could probably make them a little bit smaller, format a little bit nicer, but now if we add a new ticket, we can confirm, and now we've got another ticket there, right? So another cool thing is, like, if we want to open up our MetaMask wallet and do something like switch accounts, let's go ahead and select another account here and just connect to that. Notice all this updates automatically, right? My address is updated. The amount of ETH I have in this wallet is updated. A new wallet is connected. Notice I have no NFTs down here now. Let's go ahead and change back to our other wallet and just see that update again. Boom, everything's back. So no matter what we do in that MetaMask wallet, if we connect to another account, if we have spent some ETH somewhere else, it's going to reflect here. We can even open Etherscan. So I think with that being said, there's a few things I would note here. Again, a great application, and I can kind of go back over to our slides real quick, just so that you guys have an opportunity one more time to take a look at this code that we have. Again, my name is Eric. I'm with the MetaMask DevRel team. You can find me on Twitter. Here's the tiny URL where all this code is. Again, whether you're a Web 2 developer that's getting involved with Web 3, you want to build your first DAPP, you want to be able to track the state of your MetaMask wallet inside of a React application, which, by the way, React is pretty much what 90% of everyone in Web 3 uses, especially as they're getting started. This is a great place to start. It's a mono repo. It's got truffle and ganache. You can easily switch out and use hard hat or something else with no problem at all, right? It's super easy to do that. We have a thing called Truffle Dashboard. If you want to take kind of your, you want to be able to push these out to a test net or to mainnet or whatever, Truffle Dashboard is a really cool thing that I've added extra notes at this URL that can give you some tips on how to use Truffle Dashboard. And with Truffle Dashboard, you're not locked into Truffle. In fact, you can use Truffle Dashboard with Hard Hat, with Foundry, and these other tools. And think if you wanted to deploy this project actually onto a testnet or onto mainnet Ethereum or Polygon or whatever, there's a lot that you have to do kind of from the command line, compiling your contracts, creating migration scripts and all that. And Truffle Dashboard kind of takes care of all that for you with a nice little administration panel. And again, you can use Truffle with it, you can use other things with it, you're not locked in. At Consensus and MetaMask and Truffle, we try to build tools for the community that don't lock you into one thing. Hopefully our SDK can support multiple wallets at some point in time. Hopefully, we can work with other wallets to create better standards for all of the wallets that build in Ethereum and on multi-chain as we start to do that. Oops, I didn't say that. All right, so with that, does anyone have any questions? Jyoti, Kingsley, any questions? Anyone else? How many React developers do we have left in here? Okay, yeah, you got to raise your hand, guys. All right, yeah, so, all right. What do you think of the application? Is this something that you would use? Are you already a Web3 developer and like you're kind of already past this? Are you new to Web3? How about you guys right here in the yellow shirts? You'd use it? You wouldn't use it. What would you use? Huh? You don't do front ends, but you raised your hand. You said you're a React developer. Okay. He's not a real React developer. But anyways, well, you can give it to your front end guys. The point is like it gives you a really good starting point. If you got a friend that's new to Web3, give them this URL. They'll thank you. They'll be your best friend down the road. My name's Eric. That's pretty much my workshop. If you guys want to come up and talk to me afterwards, that's great. Otherwise, I will see you back here tomorrow or at the yacht party or somewhere else. I'll be hosting the entire track one here tomorrow, and I'm super excited about ETH Dubai this year. Things are going really great. Thank you guys very much.